and welcome to episode 9 of Behind the Glass, sponsored by Never Made It Pro Stock and the Center Ice Foundation of Central Ohio. I'm never giving it up. I can't. It's with them forever. So as usual, I'm Chad Kuvo, joined here with my little brother Vinny Kuvo and my brother from another mother, Adam Kiefer. And today we are joined by Mr. Darryl Noren, who is an ECHL Hall of Famer, and we're really excited to have him on the show. Mr. Kiefer knows him probably better than I do, since we just met about 15 minutes ago. So Keith, why don't you start her off?
Yeah, so let me give you a little background straight from the ECHL about Mr. Noren here. So he began playing in the coast as a rookie in 1991 with Greensboro and played 10 seasons, including his final 6 with the Charlotte Checkers. Darryl ranks 3rd in ECHL history with 685 points, tied for 3rd with 390 assists, 8th with 295 goals, and 24th with 549 games. Holy crap, buddy. You had a run.
It was fun. It was a fun 10, 11 years, whatever it added up to, but definitely wouldn't change it for the world. I would love to go back and do it all over again.
That's all right. Things are a little bit different now, but I'm sure it'd still be fun to give it another crack, eh?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So why don't you take us back to the very beginning? So how did you get started in hockey? You're from a hockey family, or how'd that come about?
I grew up in Detroit, and you know, the audience is probably a little young, but my brothers, we had a neighbor that built a rink every winter. And I was out there at the age of 2. They stuck me in goalie with the Sears catalogs on my shins. Just
back in 1914, Darryl. My God.
Never left the outdoors. My dad, they used to try and get me in for dinners, change my jeans. I would go to the bathroom in them. They'd be frozen to my legs, and I would not get off the ice. That's where it all started.
That's fantastic.
Good story. Good start.
So how did you start playing youth hockey, like right at mini mite, or get right into organized hockey?
Started at 5 years old, mini mites, in Detroit area. Started AAA probably in squirts. I'm not sure what that age group is now since they changed it all, but
who'd you play youth hockey for?
All over the place. There was a Jack Roberts pools. I never made the big teams, never made Little Caesars, never made CompuWare.
That's pretty wild, right?
Yeah, it was a lot of politics back in the day. I'm sure.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if that's a whole lot different now.
Yeah, there's no politics today, none.
None.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's pretty crazy though. And so how old were you? Because you went and played in the Knoll. How old were you when you went and played in the Knoll?
Well, I played in the original Knoll. There was 3 teams from Detroit.
Holy crap.
CompuWare, St. Clair Shores Falcons, which I played for, and Hennessy Engineers.
That's awesome.
Played there, actually lost in triple overtime the national title that year to Sioux City, Iowa.
That's pretty wild. That's really neat. Yeah. So then I'm just literally just kind of rolling down here. You went to, sorry, the dogs are going crazy. You went to University of Illinois, Chicago. Was that D1 then? Because it's not now, right?
Yeah, that was D1. So I played in the Knoll for a year. I played in the USHL for the following year, won the national championship. Then I went to UIC, which was D1. I think they shut their program down in, I want to say 95-ish.
So I guess when you were looking at these junior leagues, like, what was that kind of process like for you? Was there a lot of options on the table? How did you come across those? Like, what was getting on a junior team in the late 80s like?
Well, there was, with the 3 teams in Detroit, there was a draft, so I was stuck. Actually, funny story. I just talked about it. I played for Jeff Jackson, who's at Notre Dame. And my best friend played for Hennessy, and we were stacked in the Falcons, and I wasn't getting much ice. So I actually asked for a trade to go over to that team to get all the ice, but Coach Jackson did not move me. And funny thing is I got picked up at nationals the following year from Rochester in the USHL.
Okay.
But back then, I guess I was recruited when we were at the nationals, and seemed like a great place to play. So
Yeah.
It's a totally different ball game nowadays.
What a different
Right?
world, right?
Yeah, there was no elite prospects back then or
So simple.
anything like
I
that.
mean, I kind of go back and say, you know, I played a little bit of hockey growing up. I played some juniors, but I didn't even know really there was a team called Compuware. And even in the mid to late 90s, like I go to these junior camps and I'd be like, who do you play for? They'd be like, oh, Detroit Bell Tire. And I'm like, Philadelphia. I never even heard of you. Like,
Yes. So
which
none
is,
of those
I mean,
teams
it's
were,
completely changed, obviously, with social media and everything else. But it's what a wild world.
yes, definitely. There's like, I don't even know. Bell Tire was never around. Art Van was never around. It was
Now you have Big
basically
B Coffee.
Compuware,
You have
Little
Big B
Caesars.
Coffee up there now.
Right.
So then it looks like you had a little cup of coffee in the O, right? 4 games with Kitchener.
Yeah, so that's kind of a unique story. So I was playing juniors in Minnesota, and back in high school, they had a Proposition 48 rule for the NCAA. So I was a half a math credit short, and I couldn't make it up before. So I had to go to a 4-year university when I played juniors and in Minnesota. And the first month was probably okay, but then I'm not that good of a student, so I kind of dropped the ball, and then I took off to the OHL, try that path, and spent a month in the OHL and played about 4 games, and they sent me home, and I went back to the USHL and got into UIC. I sat out a whole year and 4 games, petitioned the NCAA.
I was just going to ask that question. That was literally going to be my question. Were the rules different then, or wow, that's a really unique situation for you.
Yeah,
that's,
so
I mean, for anybody.
they granted my wish, and I never took any money in Canada, so sat out a year and a game or 4 games and played two years of college.
What did you do for the year? As stupid of a question as that is. Did you could you train with the team, or can you not do anything with them on that?
I could not. I could train before there was a certain date in there I could skate with them, but once the actual true season started, I could not do anything.
That's exhausting. And so what do you do during that whole time?
Well, I grew up in a minute in Chicago. We lived in Little Italy, so I actually played. I played ball hockey with the neighborhood Italians. Worked kind of in the sub shop and just kind of worked out on.
That's great though. That's pretty unique. I mean, it just I don't think there's too many players. I can't imagine that have actually done that and petitioned and won to go back to NCAA. So that's pretty cool in itself. I mean,
yeah, I was probably pretty lucky.
Yeah, it's crazy that just playing, you played essentially 240 minutes in the OHL and that took a year of hockey away from you. That's pretty interesting to think of too.
Yeah,
if you look at it that way.
And it's still the same way.
It's definitely different.
I can't imagine nowadays you'd ever get that exemption anymore.
The kid from Erie got it. There's a kid that
right.
played for Erie that transferred in Bowling Green this year, played for Erie for a year or 2 maybe, and is playing at Bowling Green.
Huh.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
But I think that had a lot to do with the COVID stuff too. Like it was a much easier thing to do.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you go to university or you start playing. So that would have been what, you're like probably 3rd year of eligibility, right?
Oh gosh, that would have been in.
So 88, 89.
Yeah, I had 3 years of eligibility left.
Okay.
So I played 2 years and left.
So on that team, I noticed one name popping off the page, Kevin Alexander, and he's going to come up a couple more times here.
Yeah, probably will. That's again my best friend. We started playing 5 years old together.
That's
no
pretty
shit.
crazy.
Yeah,
That's pretty crazy.
I knew you guys were connected. I didn't know you were that connected.
oh yeah, best mans in each weddings and just
Wow.
Really?
played. We played together. Not all the time, same team, but at college we played a year of pro together. We always played baseball together, shortstop, second base, and know a lot about that guy.
Just a
Sure.
package deal.
That's how I actually moved to Columbus. He owned his own company, and I went to work for him.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Good for you. So take us back though. What's college hockey like in 1988? It's a little bit different. You're coming 8 years after the Miracle on Ice with those kind of kids, and U.S. college hockey is a much different place today than it was then. What were the games like for you? How would you compare it to nowadays, really?
Well, I think the college experience was great. We played against some unbelievable players. Bowling Green was very strong. Michigan State was the big dog around. Again, numerous players that were NHL guys. I don't. Regardless of what age, to me, the game may be a little quicker. Guys are bigger, stronger. I think the hockey sense has left at all levels, even NHL, but it's definitely fast.
I think that's an
that's almost a topic in itself. Really, that could spin me off into a 10-minute offshoot.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I think the game's gone soft myself, but
I agree.
I was probably a generation behind. I was a smaller guy back then, and again, when I turned pro, if you weren't 6 feet, it was very, very difficult to earn a job, I should say.
Pretty wild. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, I think you're listed as well, at least on HockeyDB at like 5'10", and 5'10" guys in the 90s, they're probably not making the NHL.
No.
And he was probably 5'8".
Oh, come on now. I am now because I'm shrinking.
I hear
you. So you did you end up graduating from Illinois, Chicago, or did you leave?
I did not. I played 2 years and I left.
And you jumped right into pro hockey, right? Right after that.
I did, yes.
In the IHL, essentially, did you play first in Albany in the IHL? Or did you get called up from Greensboro that year?
I did. I went. So I'll go back to some stories, and you may enjoy these or may not.
Please.
So the summer after I'll call it my sophomore year, second year, we weren't very good. So that summer I went to the Olympic Sports Festival where they bring 4 teams together. You play a tournament. And I had been taken in the supplemental draft by Quebec, which I tell everybody today I was a first rounder, but they didn't know that there's only one round. So,
first rounder.
Literally right before I went to that camp, my second year of college, my dad gave me a station wagon, a Caprice Classic station wagon.
Tell me it had the wood panels on the side.
It was
the family truckster.
It wasn't a Woody wagon, but trying to park this thing in Chicago was a nightmare.
Oh God.
So we went and we were going to go buy me a little S10 pickup to go back to school. So then I get out to the sports festival in Minnesota, actually. And Quebec was going to come out and watch me play. So the GM was coming out. Long story short, my team, we ended up winning the gold medal. And they never showed up. So I came home. I was all pissed off and told my dad, I said, all right, let's go get this vehicle. And that day, the GM called from Quebec and said, I'm flying to Detroit to see you. I said, oh, okay. All right. So he came in, took us out to dinner. And literally you hear these stories about writing a contract on a napkin. My dad and I had him in the basement of our house, writing a contract on a napkin.
How many beers did he have?
He probably had a couple wines. We probably had 6 in us or so, but so he comes up to the point of, this is what you'll make in the NHL. This will be your minor league salary. And my dad says, you can stop right there. That number's got to come up or you might as well leave. And I'm like thinking to myself, Dad, shut that.
You're going, oh. Take it.
So
that's wild.
So by the time he leaves, we have something on paper and he says, think about it or whatever. So of course I'm like, I hated school. And again, I had a great year the year before and we didn't have much coming in for the next year. So, I mean, we literally won probably 10 games. So the next morning I had met a buddy of mine's agent at the sports festival. And so I called him up and said, this is what they offered me. And he said, oh, that's crazy. I can get you more than that. And I was like, well, I'm going to take it. So you go and do your job. And he did a phenomenal job in my first contract.
Nice.
So
Yeah,
I
so
went from an S10 to I bought me this souped up GMC Jimmy back then.
there
Ooh,
you go.
that was my first. That was
Uh-huh.
actually my first car ever. Was a GMC Jimmy. My mom gave me, and then I blew it up a month in. But
Yeah, it was quite the turnaround. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, you had a great last year in college. 38 games played, 66 points. That's a good year on a bad team, you say.
I think at Christmas I was leading the nation in goals.
Oh wow.
Up for the Hobie Baker. And then I cooled way off, or team started teeing up on me or what have you. But there was literally weekends I would have all of our goals on weekends, and it was just,
That's crazy.
we played Michigan one time, and I had a bunch of buddies on Michigan, and they beat us 9-4, and I had all 4.
Jeez.
Went to Ferris State. I think I got player of the week that week. We won 3-2. We lost 3-2. I had all 5 goals. So it was fun.
For you.
What a
Just needed a little more supporting cast, I guess.
I
Apparently.
hear
Yeah.
you there.
You could have just used like 2 more goals a game from another line.
Yeah, exactly. But I played with some good players there. Rick
That's
Judson,
amazing.
who's from just outside of Toledo, and he had a pretty good ECHL career too. But it's probably, I haven't looked this up, but I thought about this. UIC, for however many years it was there, we actually have 2 ECHL Hall of Famers from UIC.
Oh wow.
Actually, I was on the
Sheldon Corsi
ECHL.
is the other one.
I clicked on your name and ended up in the ECHL like list. Ole Kolzig's on there too. I can't tell.
Yeah,
Only the goalie.
Ole was inducted the same year as me, but he had a family vacation, so he was on a cruise somewhere.
Too busy.
Priorities.
But he actually played. I played against him a few times. He was in Hampton Roads. That was Washington's farm team.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Godzilla, I think, is what he had on his mask, or Zilla or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
where was your first pro training camp?
Quebec Nordiques, Guy Lafleur's final year.
Oh wow.
What was that like to get on the ice with that guy? I mean,
It was the funny thing is so back then we had 90 something guys in camp.
Mm-hmm.
Split up in 4 teams. You practice in the morning, you scrimmage in the afternoon. We're doing our off ice fitness testing, and Guy sat in the hallway smoking cigarettes the whole time. And he actually came out with his own energy drink. It was called the Flower Power. We had to drink like Gatorade.
come on.
But he was just a legend, boy. I mean, it was unreal skating with him. And the only time I was pissed is one day I left practice. I was the last one on the ice, and on the bench were 2 of his sticks. And I'm like, man, I wonder if I should grab those or not. And of course I didn't get it, and then I kicked myself.
Ah.
Oh, how sick would that be? Oh,
But so yeah, that was and another good story from that training camp. So you get there, you look who's on your line, and first day I'm there, I'm nervous, and I'm playing with Lucien Deblois, which was probably at that time a 10-year NHL veteran. He was my right winger. My left winger was Tony McKegney, who's big French black guy that was tough. So we get to the bench first scrimmage, and they look at me and they're like, hey kid, you got a nickname? And I'm like, well, yeah. I've been known as Dirt my whole life from my family since I was probably 2. And Deblois,
it was because you peed your pants and it froze. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well, the true story is my mom used to get me dressed up for church, and I'd be dirty by the time we left. We had 7 kids, so
Wow.
So Deblois says you can call me Lou, and McKegney says you can call me Bro Frog, and I'm like, there is no way in heck I'm calling that. Because if you don't know, French people back then were called
Frogs.
Boom,
Right.
and he was a black guy, and boom, and times have changed in that. So I'm like, there's no way I'm calling this guy this. Like, so anyway, we get on the ice first shift, and sure enough, I'm screaming for the pass, Bro Frog, Bro Frog, and so the first 2 days of camp, we lit it up. We were probably in the top 5 of scoring, all 3 of us. And third day of camp, I get there and I'm playing with guys, so I don't even know where they're from, can't even pronounce where they're from. And played in a rookie game. Usually they dressed a couple rookies after those, and we played LA's rookies, and we lost 3-2. I had both goals shorthanded. So I'm like, man, I'm gonna get an exhibition game tomorrow night, and go up to the rink. And back then they dressed the tough guy instead. So that was as close as I got.
Wow.
Still pretty
Closer than us for sure.
Was there, but that camp there was. I mean, you had, good Lord, you had LaFleur, Joey Sakic, Kip Miller, who was the Hobie Baker winner then.
Sick. Yeah.
So my chances of making it were very, very slim.
One of the biggest questions I had just by running down your career was, I mean, you lit it up in the ECHL, and I'm going to assume the biggest problem you probably had was your size at that time of your pro hockey career, and you really lit it up there. And I look at it, I'm like, how do you not get more than 40 games or whatever it was at the next level? It's just strange, crazy almost.
Yeah, it was. So anyway, so my first year pro, I was in 5 cities by Thanksgiving, and ended up in Greensboro. They were affiliated. And the next year, so here's kind of a story that leads in, is the next year, my second year, I'm literally on record-breaking numbers in the East Coast. I get called up to New Haven. They were an independent team in the American League, and man, what was that guy's name? Doug Carpenter was the coach, the old Capitals coach.
Yep.
Great coach. So I went up for the weekend, played 3 games, pretty much played 4th line, hardly any minutes. And I go into the office Monday, and he's like, "Hey, we want to keep you up here the rest of the year." And I said, "Well, let me ask you something. Why would you want to keep me up here?" I said, "I'm no good to you playing 4th line. I don't fight. And I'm breaking records here. So I'm not staying. I'm going back." And I went back for another week, and he called me up and gave me 3rd line minutes and power play minutes. And I went back up for the rest of the year. And then that summer, Quebec bought out my 3rd year of my contract.
You had a good run up in the A, so you had what, 20 points in 34 games? That's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually played against oh God, I'm losing Quebec's farm team was in Halifax. So we played them the last weekend of the season, and Kevin Kaminsky kneed me at center ice, and I no playoffs, no nothing. I was done.
Oh man.
Which I'm friends with today. He was a good guy, but he was one of the craziest guys I've ever met. We played rookie games. I remember one rookie game, like he jumped in the other team's bench to fight guys. We had
got to get noticed, I guess, huh?
stands were packed every day for scrimmages. We had John Kordick there, Wayne Van Dorp. Gosh, who are some of the other tough guys? McKegney, Tony Twist.
Oh, Tony.
Oh wow,
Twist.
Twister.
Yeah.
So it was basically, they went at it every day to see who the big club was going to keep as far as toughness wise.
Wow, John Kordick really lit up the penalty minutes.
John Kordick, I forget how many years ago, passed away, but he was another piece of work.
Wow.
You have to be in that league.
Yes.
I saw, I don't know if you crossed paths in your year in New Haven. I saw Scott Arneal was on that roster. Was he there while you were up?
Oh God, was Arnie there? I think he was.
Yeah,
A
he
couple
had
of
11
guys,
games.
He might have been there before I was there. Al Tour was a great guy. I think he was our captain then. Trevor Steinberg. So I think we had like 4 or 5 actually Quebec contract guys there with me. John Anderson, another great guy. Man, could he put the puck in the net? Stan Drulia, they had an unbelievable line. Drulia, Anderson, and Paul Willett. That was our number 1 line, and they were good.
Nighthawks
you just made me go down. I go like into the Google space, like you say a name, and then I'm like, I gotta check that guy out.
On the rabbit hole.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, John Anderson, whoa, and I just learn all about him, which is pretty interesting.
Who was an interesting character. He had the Super Bowl party one year or that year at his house, and obviously I was a rookie there, so he had me running to the kitchen. He drank wine,
doing all the work.
Yes, and he said, "Hey, rookie, go in the kitchen and grab me a glass of wine, will you?" So I went in there a few times, and one time I go in there and his wife goes, "Man, you really like wine, and that's not for John, is it?" I'm like, "Oh no, it's not for him or not." His wife was counting his wine consumption.
That's great teammate right there.
That's fantastic.
All right, so after New Haven, it looks like you went back to Greensboro the next year. 92.
I don't know how you remember all this. I can't remember last week that good.
Greensboro, and I played in the United League 1 year for the half a year, and then back to Greensboro. I can't remember if that was my 3rd or 4th year.
Yeah.
Is that for Detroit Falcons?
Detroit Falcons, yep.
Yeah, 57 points in 27 games.
Wasn't bad.
Yeah, right.
So saw some interesting names on a couple of those Greensboro rosters, like a guy named Phil Berger. I'd never heard of him before. He's a year older than you, but he came in super duper hot, like 60 games, 60 goals, something like that.
Yeah, he's actually he actually played with my brother. I think he was a 16-year-old juniors. Went to was he a Northern Michigan guy, I believe. And then ended up there. He was a different bird, but he could, not the greatest skater. I think he was a Quebec guy too, if I'm not mistaken. But boy, when it got on his stick, it was in the net. Played with him for many years as my right winger and Sean Wheeler as my left winger.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Bergie he was a piece of work, but man, he could put pucks in the net. And playoff time, he was unreal as well.
So
super clutch.
My question is, once you kind of make your way through there, you really find your home, which is, I mean, at least by the sheet, it tells you that you end up in Charlotte for a pretty long time. How was that? I mean, how'd you end up there too? Whose affiliate were they at that time?
Charlotte, we were Boston and New York Rangers at the time. Interesting story on that trade. So we had our rookie party in Greensboro. That day we were out playing par 3 golf, having a very, very good time. And we all ended up at our neighborhood hangout. And I get a call from the coach, Jeff Brubaker. He says, "Hey, Nori, you got to come to my house and bring so-and-so." I can't remember this rookie's name. And I'm like, "Brew, we're in the middle of our rookie party. I'm hammered right now. I can't get to your house." He's like, "Well, you got to find somebody to drive you." So Davis Payne was there at the time. And he drives me over there. I walked in and Brew's like, "Well, I got to tell you, you just got traded." And I just looked at him and I said, "Are you out of your effing mind?" And he's like, "No, we had to do it." And I said, "Well, who'd you get for me?" And he told me, and I go, you're crazy. So anyway, I said, "All right, is that all you need?" And he's like, "Yep." So I sent the rookie in, and Davis and I are sitting in the car. I just said, I just got traded. Davis and I were great friends. And he's like, "Oh, this is BS. This is bullshit." And this kid was in Brew's house for, I don't know, it seemed like 2 hours, but
you're just sitting there trying to get out of there.
Finally, about 20 minutes later, I said, "Painter, screw him. Let's get back to the bar." So we go to the bar and I called my wife and said, we just got traded. And she's like, well, what does that mean? And she's from the South. And I said, well, we got traded over to Charlotte. Why don't you come to the bar? We're going to party all night. And Davis and I ended up staying up till like 5 a.m. We're wrestling and my wife's trying to sleep. We put a hole in the wall. We burnt a pizza. It was a night to
Not in
never
one.
forget.
I like that. That's great.
You had a couple of NHL head coaches on that team. Bilismo was on that roster too.
Oh yeah, Danny Bilesma and Davis Payne. So I'll give you guys want stories from that year. Here's a good one.
Hell yeah.
So we had of course Jeff Brubaker played for the Maple Leafs for years.
Mhm.
I don't know, for years, and I think Rangers as well, tough guy. So we had a guy on our team named John Blessman. Now this was a very an unbelievable hockey player, defenseman. He was with the New Jersey Devils, kept getting sent down, and hardest shot I've ever seen in my life. Like he was Al McInnes, Iafrate type, like he could bring it. And one year, I think this is last year in New Jersey's camp, Lou Lamoriello brought him in and said, you're not going to make it, blah, blah, blah. We're buying your contract out. So Lamoriello hands him a $30,000 check and Bless rips it up, throws it at him, says, I don't want your money. So later on in the year, Blessman's fed up with Brubaker, and Blessman just ordered a dozen sticks, these Chimos. I think Sherwood back in the day. So Bless says, screw you, I'm going to play down in West Palm Beach. I forget, Southern League, maybe it was called that. I don't exactly remember. So anyway, he goes in the office, and we had one lady that worked in there. This older lady was a receptionist at Brew. So Bless goes in there. Him and Brubaker start getting in this argument match, and I walk in, I'm standing at the door, and finally Brew goes in his office and he grabs a dozen of the Chimos, throws them at him. Here's your effing sticks. And they go toe to toe in the office. And the receptionist, the desk pinned her against the wall. And I'm just like, man, this can't be happening. And I looked, there was two doors to the place, and I looked to the right, and Davis Payne and Dan Bilesma are watching this. They were rookies, and their jaws were just dropped watching them fight. It was a classic.
Man. Taking out the receptionist. Good Lord.
Yeah,
Another day.
it was crazy.
So
So that's how I
a
ended in
good-
Charlotte.
I
So
like
then
that.
I get traded in Charlotte. So we went to bed about 5, and my phone starts ringing at 7:00, and my John Marks is the coach there, and Sean Wheeler, who was my left winger for the first probably 3 years, was the player coach. My phone starts ringing at like 7:30 in the morning, and I'm still buzzed. Those were back in the day. It was the answer machines, and they kept calling and calling, and finally I unplugged it. I wake up about 10:30 and I call Wheels back. I said, Wheels, what's up? He goes, you're traded. I go, yeah, I know. And he says, well, we got a game tonight. And I said, there is no way in hell I'm playing tonight. And he's like, oh, come on, just eat your pregame meal, get your nap in, and call me when you're done. And I'm done with your nap. And I was like, okay, but I'm telling you, I'm not coming.
I'm still not coming. I'll do all those things. I'm still not showing up.
So they talked me into showing up.
How far away was this at the moment?
It should have been about an hour and 15 minutes.
Okay.
And Wheels gives me this back way, and it seemed like 3 hours. My wife, I dragged her to the game, and she's like, you're not playing here. It's way too far away.
It's crazy to think about that. And you didn't even have you didn't even have MapQuest at that point. You had a map, literally a book of papers. Yeah.
So I ended up going there, and so they stick my wife in these seats with all the booster club, and obviously they know who she is because she's brand new in the spot, and probably the worst game of my career, and they're booing me and they're doing all this. She comes after the game. She goes, "Man, those people hate you." I said, "Well, I'll give them a couple weeks. They'll
Give him a couple weeks. We'll settle in.
I trust me, Darryl grows on you. Do you remember the first time we met, Darryl? I don't know. You probably
is it you being a ref, Kiefer?
Yeah.
I figured it was. There was no other way.
Of course it was.
It had to be when you were reffing, but I don't remember where it was at.
So it was. I had no clue who you were. So I retired from reffing, and you were coaching with Kevin the first time. Yeah, you were coaching at Liberty, and it was like the first game of the preseason, and I don't know, like I'm just coming back after shutting it down for a couple seasons. I go out there and like it's like the first freaking play down the ice. I wave off an icing. Like I gave him like the stick length plus a little bit. And I'm on the far side away from this bench. And this guy, just who I have no clue who he is, just starts giving it to me. Like that's icing, blah, 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 in the middle of play. And he's just like giving it to me. I deserved it. It's fair. And so he's giving it to me. And I turn around because I'm me. And I just start giving it back to him. Yeah. No clue who this guy is. Like, we don't do this crap here, blah, 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 blah. Like, it's close enough. It's preseason. Like, it's freaking October. Give me a break. Something like that. And so the first period's over. The Zamboni finishes up. I come out, to go put the nets out. I'm like, man, I gotta find this cat and apologize because I really just blew a gasket there. That's not a good way to start it out. And so I'm like, I see he's the only person over on the bench. And so I skate over and I'm like, I'm gonna eat my words and apologize to this cat. And I'm like thinking to myself, man, I'm just gonna say, sorry, man, I just get like really, really into the games. And it's just the moment got into me. First game back in a while. And before I even get to the bench, Darryl says to me, "Hey man, sorry, I just really get into the games, and it's pretty intense." And at that moment, Darryl, I knew we were going to be just fine.
That's great. I love it.
Yeah, it was great.
So how many times you thrown him out since then?
Zero.
I'm just
so
I have not been thrown out of a game coaching.
No.
One game I'll tell you, thrown out, and it was because we had too many penalties.
Oh, that's the worst.
There you go. Yeah. Which is the worst rule in USA hockey.
Yeah. I don't know about the worst. But
so here, and I'm sure we'll get into this here in a little bit. We're getting towards the end of time, but here's Darryl, and he's on the bench, and this is what I appreciate the most as an official. Like, I don't mind. Like, I get in the games just like everyone else does, but when I screw the pooch, like, give it to me. I earned it. You have to make a point. You have to advocate for your team. I fully support that. But the thing about Darryl is that it's professional. It's never personal. It's about the play. And when you screw up, he's going to tell you. But when you do something right, he's also going to tell you. And I'll give you an example from this year, early in the year. Man, it was probably like the first couple of weeks of September. I was wearing the bands on one of his U16 games. And I don't remember that whoever you were playing, they were all over me for everything. And I let your guy chips the puck in, defenseman kind of stood him up, right? Probably definitely a penalty nowadays in USA hockey. 5 years ago, it's a great hockey play. And in the act of that play happening, the defenseman kind of like picked the guy up and like threw him down, and I called it. And their bench lit me up for calling that. And my answer to them was, hey, like, look, I let him go on the interference, but like body slamming the guy is a real problem. And like I always do, anytime I talk to one bench, I go and talk to the other one. And I own that call to Darryl, like, hey man, I let that interference go. I shouldn't have, but that body slamming that guy was way too much. And he cut me off and told me exactly what I was about to say to him again, because we're connected at the hip. And and then we saw each other and we talked about it. And he actually told me that I did a good job in that game. And he specifically said, I bet you don't hear that too often. And I'm like,
you definitely don't hear that too often. I met your wife too.
I don't hear that often. And you're like the only person that's complimented me this year. But he's also
in charge of traffic in Columbus, so he definitely doesn't hear that much.
True. But that's the kind of guy he is, and that's the kind of guy that I love to work with. And like when you're emotional and you're passionate about it, like it's good for the game. But is constructively criticizing as you can be of officials, you're also as complimentary. And I just want to tell you that we appreciate that.
Well, thank you.
It's the right way to do
I
it.
don't know if all
The
the other guys
award-winning-
would
the
agree
award-winning.
with that, but it's all good. I speak my mind and it's over with and I'm done with it, whatever. You can't,
That's-
that's the hard part of teaching these kids, like to let a play go or let this go. Like it's over. I tell my kids all the time, I said, I've never seen a ref in my life say, hold on a minute. I'm
You were
going to take
right.
that penalty back, whether it was right or wrong. And,
Yeah.
you know, but it's good. I try to respect everybody. I've been around this too long.
That's awesome, Keith. I like that background. I have a question, and I know we're gonna try and get out of here in a couple minutes, but one of the ones that eats me alive and looking at your hockey DB is from 95 to 98, or essentially, those 4 years. What in this is it the summertime where you went down to Florida or even Jersey or Florida and played in the roller hockey league?
Oh yeah. So that was one thing is I won the championship in 2 different roller hockey and ice the same year. But yeah, I basically
Not a big deal. Not to steal some words from other people, but not a big deal.
It was fun. Roller hockey was a blast. Actually, we played in New Jersey. It was really awesome. Played at the old Meadowlands. We lived in
I was going to ask
upstate.
where you played.
What's that?
I said I was going to ask where in Jersey you guys played.
Yeah, it was awesome. We lived in upstate New York. In the wintertime, it was a ski resort. It was about an hour and 10 away, so we didn't practice very much. It had golf on there, all these pools. The wives loved it. Actually, Manon Rayon was on our team then.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yep. And Manon played with me in Charlotte as well.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome. I watched, there's actually as weird as it is, an Amazon Prime about the guy who started and ran that league, that RHI league. There's a documentary about him, and he did really good for a bunch of years, and then it like fell apart on him, which was strange, but it looked like a heck of an experience to be a professional hockey player, to go, to be able to go do that in the summertime, almost in your off season, if you wanted to keep playing and make a little more money in some cool places and do some cool stuff.
It was, and that league was great, but it got out of control with the money wise. That was the whole. It's kind of like an OI or an IHL, paying guys too much money, and it was fun while it lasted for sure.
I can imagine, and just going to Orlando for the summer playing roller hockey.
Orlando was great. We actually played in, what was that arena? The O Arena, I think, where the Magic played.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
And that was fun. It was hot there though. The summer is really hot. Like you didn't done golf by noon. You were.
Sounds tough. Sounds really tough.
Yeah,
It was tough. It was tough for a while. I can't believe our hour's up. I got stories I even wrote down today. We didn't even touch.
We're gonna need a whole nother episode.
There could be an episode 2 easily.
I was gonna give you how I met Ed Ginger for the first time.
We'll take that one.
Let's hear this one.
Okay, here's it. So the Hall of Fame induction was in Ontario, California.
Okay.
And actually Eddie's dad was inducted in the Hall of Fame for being an owner of Dayton and all
Dayton,
that.
right?
Yeah, and his dad had passed away.
Huh.
So I think he sat at my table at the luncheon. He introduced himself, and we literally lived 5 miles from each other. Never knew him. So then we go to the game. Yeah, we go to the game, and of course, me and Eddie hit it off pretty good. And Eddie was hanging with me, and we were drinking some Kokanees, which is the best beer ever, by the way. We drank quite a few Kokanees. And so they have this party after the game and all this jazz. And they had the Stanley Cup there. I had all my kids there, my wife, Eddie had I think his sister was there. And so my wife comes up to me. I hadn't seen the Stanley Cup yet. And she's like, well, he's leaving with it right now. And it was Pritchard, the guy that travels around with it, right? So I'm a couple sheets to the wind with Eddie, and I yell at him down the hallway, hold on, we haven't seen it yet. So he stops at the end of the hallway, opens up the case and pulls the whole thing out. We're taking pictures of it with me and Eddie, Cam Brown. Eddie never touched it. I said, my career is over. I'm going to grab this thing. We probably spent 15 more minutes with that thing, and Pritchard was just awesome with it. I mean, he was
so cool.
Stories and So
I have a question though. Were you in hockey then when you met Ed? Were you still in hockey? Was that when you were coaching Liberty, or did you take time off from coaching when you moved to Columbus?
I finished playing,
Mm-hmm.
and I was assistant coach in the East Coast in Pensacola. From there, there's another great story too. I took a job in the Southern Pro League in Tallahassee for Bill Coffey. So I moved all my stuff to Tallahassee in the summer and went back to Carolina. Well, the team never got a lease done for the building. So I'm sitting now with no job, and Bill and Jeff Brubaker they were half owners of the team in St. Pete, Florida. So they had already had their coach, their GM. So Bill was paying me. He's like, well, you got to go over there and be assistant GM and assistant coach. And so I'm like, all right. Go over there.
You're just the amazing part is you're so used to this point. You're like, cool, yeah, sure.
Yeah, whatever.
Tomorrow, maybe.
We've moved probably, I don't know, since we've been married 20 sometimes.
I was gonna ask if you were still married to the same woman, just because I don't know too many that would probably put up with that shit.
Yeah.
So I think you're probably pretty lucky on that side too.
Oh, definitely outkicked my coverage, and
Same.
So I think I coached that year. The coach actually got a job in the United League, Bruce Ramsey. And I finished the year off coaching there. And then the next year, or actually during that year, we moved from St. Pete at Christmas time to Winston-Salem, North Carolina. So my wife grew up probably 20, 30 minutes from there. And the next year, everything was up in the air. My wife said, all right, enough of this hockey stuff. We got 3 kids. You're going to have to give it up and raise a family. So I got out of the game so this is my second year here. I had the Mavericks. I had 1 year at Liberty. My first year of coaching, I was at church, and a guy asked me, found out I liked hockey or played or whatever. So I actually coached the ODHC Phantoms, which was all the kids from Liberty or Olentangy School District that got cut from JV and varsity.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't have a home.
That was my first year into coaching in Columbus, and then Liberty for a year, assistant. And then I took that Mavericks GM and coach job, and then last 2 years here.
Couldn't couldn't stay away, could you?
No, kids are grown up, so my wife said you can get back in it. And
Nice.
So you have
a lot more happier in the game than out of the game, so get back in it.
Do you have 05s or 06s this year?
I have 05s.
05s. I'm trying to think of who I know who's on that team that I know.
Trout's brother. That's
Trout, yeah, Brady Trout's in 05, right?
Brady's, yeah.
No, he's
he's in 06. Darn it.
Oh.
I don't know if I know any 05.
Oh, you're right.
I know Chris Clark's kid.
Oh yeah, Clarky.
Yeah.
Clarky. I got Robert Esch's kid on my team. The old Philadelphia and Phoenix goalie.
Yeah.
Does he still live in New York?
He does. He owns the
Comets, right?
Team.
What, Utica?
Comets. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's NCDC. Is that what that is now? Or no?
Oh,
No,
The actual Utica Comets. Oh, my bad. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And he's got NCDC as well.
Does he really? So that's under him too. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, he owns the building.
I guess that makes it a little easier, huh?
Yeah, he does.
You don't have to worry about the lease deals and things like that.
So I'm from Syracuse area, and like my family's out there still. Like he is huge for hockey in Central New York. Like he does so many great things in the community out there.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Unreal.
That's awesome.
I did want to ask you one about your last season. I was looking at the roster, and I think you played in Fayetteville Force. And I was looking at the roster, and there's a guy named Marty Melnichuk, maybe.
You love this guy. This is your guy, Keith.
This is my guy.
He's your guy.
This is my only question I had written down for this entire thing, Darryl. 39 games played, 380 PIMS, -25. Tell me about this.
-25 gets me more than anything because
he's averaging almost 10 minutes in penalties a game.
And
Holy
averaging
shit.
-1 a game, which is impressive to do both those things at one time.
Yeah, Chucker was, so there are stories from, he was in, who came up with that guy? I can't remember. He was in 1 year, he was in New York Rangers training camp. And he literally chased a guy something happened in a game before, and this other guy didn't play another something. He's in the training room getting worked on, and Melnichuk goes running in there. They're fighting in the training room. I remember one story, Marty. We're on this overnight bus trip. Everybody's sleeping. It's 3, 4 in the morning, and so we ate, and the coach had leftovers and put it into the fridge on the bus and said, "Hey, if anybody wants this through the night, just throw it." It was like cheese fries. So it's 3 in the morning. We hear all this commotion going on. Well, our backup goalie decided he was going to grab these fries and heat them up, and Melnichuk thought they were his. So
Chucker.
he got up and they got in a fight in there. Like, Chucker was a big boy. He was like 6'5", and he's, man, he was a piece of work, but he was tough, and he was an interesting character for sure.
I'm just shocked when I do the quick math of if I take both leagues he played. I'm just gonna do one. He played in 39 games, 60 minutes. That's 2. He spent like half his time in the penalty box, and the other time, half the time he spent giving up goals. Like, I don't know what coach kept putting him back out. Like,
well, the fans went nuts when he hit the ice.
fair enough.
Gotta sell tickets, man. Gotta
Sell
sell
tickets.
tickets.
I think every time we did a jersey auction, his jersey would go for thousands of bucks. It was great.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
wild. Now I'm gonna look up his jersey and see if I can get Kiefer one for Christmas.
He's probably the most famous person in Fayetteville.
Yeah, he actually the one game we had a buddy come up from Carolina. Well, actually, we were in Carolina, but came up from Charlotte. He's a big hockey guy, and his good buddy was the coach's brother. We were all good friends. We brought him up, and actually, literally, he says, "Is there going to be any fights at the game?" And we're like, "Yeah, there's going to be some." And literally, the puck dropped 5 straight times, 5 straight fights.
Come on. You can't even get a shift.
We had that jersey auction, and our buddy ended up buying that Melnichuk jersey.
Yeah.
And he went -2 that game.
That's true. Plus $1,300.
That minus, I don't know where he got all those minuses from, but because he was on the ice for about 3 minutes, and
that's what I said. How could you possibly be -25?
Like, you go out there for 25 seconds, drop the mitts, and then you're in the box.
I mean,
he actually traded him that year. And,
yeah, to San Antonio Iguanas, right? You spent some time there, didn't you?
And we played him, and after the game we beat him, and somebody one of our guys knew they just egged him on, and he went to the penalty box. We ended up winning on a power play, and all of a sudden we hear this commotion, like he is beating up their bathroom, like the stalls and everything in there. That was hysterical.
I just want to let you know that in his pro career, and this is with all the stats that are added up on here, he was approximately -50. I'm just I don't think that's good.
He didn't skate all that well.
Didn't have to.
Didn't have to. That's exactly right.
There's actually a documentary. I think it was Jeff Christian, right?
Yeah, of course
Yeah.
I do. Yeah.
His brother, I can't remember what his name was. He ended up passing away a couple years ago.
Uh-huh.
So he played in the Central League, and there was some documentary on there, and Melnichuk's on there yelling at him, because we actually played Indianapolis, and their coach told this Christian guy, "You cannot fight tonight. You can't." And Melnichuk was chirping him from warm-ups on. And finally, sometime during the game, he had to drop the mitts with him. That was crazy. Central League was 1 year was plenty, but my buddy talked me into it, and he's like, "Come be my player coach. I'm going to get an East Coast League job the next year." And I'm like, I said, "I'll come, but I don't want to play all the time." And he was one of my best friends, and our wives are really good friends. So we lived across the street.
You just want to skip random days, or you mean like you didn't want to go out on shifts?
No, I didn't want to play 30 minutes a game at 32 years old. I'm like, so Gordo. So we lived across the street from each other, and after every game, like we called it the bar garage. We'd have beers after every game, and Gordo would have like 2, and he'd be like, "I got to go to bed. We got a game tomorrow night." And I'm like, the wives would be all over. I'd be staying up till 3, 4 in the morning with the wives and have to play the next night. And he just kept throwing me out there. And geez, oh Pete, still had a good year as an old guy.
Yeah, you did.
That's awesome. I love it.
So what's it like to be a player coach? I mean, that's kind of you don't hear that too much anymore. It seems like it's kind of going away a little bit. Like, do you bag skate yourself? How does that work?
Well, it's a
Shouldn't-
it's pretty much a title for a salary cap reasons, but
Gotcha.
we might run a few practices and yeah, I'd bag myself. I'm a bagger. I still believe in bagging guys, but some do and some don't.
Yeah.
I think I'm a big supporter still, actually, myself, if I think about it.
It's good for the character.
Yeah. They are
100%.
soft, though. They are soft, like we started this with. They're not. It's completely different hockey.
World's changed.
Completely different kids.
Oh yeah, no doubt about that.
But I think, Keith, do you have anything else, Vin? Anything? This is amazing. We
I
got to
mean,
do it again.
Yeah, I was going to
Yeah,
say,
we-
Daryl's got more stories, so we definitely have to have a part 2.
Yeah, we can fill up at least another hour's worth.
That's awesome.
Attaboy.
We're just getting started.
Yeah, sounds good.
So
Absolutely awesome.
yeah, let's connect again soon, because man, you've been around for a long time, and I think a lot of people are going to love hearing what you went through and hearing what else you got to tell us. So thanks a ton for taking the time with us tonight. This is awesome. I think people are going to love it.
Good
Thank you
stuff.
so much.
Appreciate it, fellas.
Thanks for joining us. It means a lot. Really
Thanks
does.
for having me.
Thank you.
Absolutely.